Everybody feel it. You all know. Oh, good.
Okay, it's our monthly city council meeting. It's August 20th, 2024. With that, we do the roll call
Mayor Ikorst,
here.
Councilor Pendergrass,
Here.
Councilor Phillips,
Here.
Councilor Richards,
Here.
Councilor Dumbledore.
Here.
All right, approval or agenda. I just have one editorial on page 2 under water and sewer. The tentative open house is Friday, September 13th versus 10th. So
Just on the second page, man.
top second page, yeah. Minor.
And for what now?
Oh, the open house.
Open house is September 13th. It's a Friday. It's not the date. It was the 10th. We moved it to the 13th.
I would like to add under new business, discussion / action pertaining to contracts.
Under new business.
Yep.
What does that be?
It's a discussion / action pertaining to contracts,
The city contracts, what contracts?
city contracts.
The under B, is that what's going?
Either B or, maybe that's shove the public hearing to B and make it A. Be up to the mayor, that'll be that's what general.
For both in the both session.
Any other amendments? Seeing none, with all those in favor of approving or adding to new business. Roman numeral B, discussion of city contracts. In favor, signify by saying aye.
Roman numeral B.
Well, yeah, it's B. Or no, Roman.
So who seconded that?
Yeah, I did.
With that, our public forum is next. It's 3-minute time limit. The city council welcomes and encourages participation from community members. Please keep in mind that your comments must be pertinent to city business and must adhere to data privacy rules. No employees' names may be used. Please do not expect action from this council this evening regarding your concerns. To address the city council during public forum, please step up to the podium, state your name and address, and fill out the form provided, and speakers will be recognized only once. Your time, you will be timed. Begin speaking with the green card is raised. Yellow indicates you have 30 seconds left, and the red card indicates you have reached your 3-minute time limit. So with that, public forum's open at 6:35. Please come to the podium. Yep.
Brian Button, 940 Woodlands Lane Southeast. Dear City Council, later this evening, we'll be having a closed session regarding outlet A that Cedar Woodlands 2 currently owns. The city is requesting that we turn over the septic field due to a development agreement that was signed back in May of 2013 between the city and Corporal Investment, of which our HOA had no prior knowledge of. However, our development agreement is just like the Cedar Woodlands 1 development agreement that the city willfully terminated upon request. We are asking for the exact same thing. We are requesting to maintain ownership of this land based on similar circumstances that the city allowed Cedar Woodlands 1 to maintain their septic field after they connected to the city sewer system. In both the March 2022 and April 2022 city council meetings, the city attorney stated to formally terminate the Cedar Woodlands 1 development agreement. The city attorney stated that he did not believe the HOA was responsible for the developer's original agreement and suggested that the city terminate the agreement. Part of the reasoning was that the developer was no longer part of that, and the HOA has taken over, which is exactly the same as Cedar Woodlands 2. A letter was to be drafted to finalize the termination of the development agreement. The mayor motioned to approve and it was seconded. The council voted 5-0 to approve the termination. The discussion can be found starting at 32 minutes and 53 seconds on 4/19/2022 city council recording. After reviewing both development agreements, we believe that Cedar Woodlands 2 should have the same right to retain our septic field. While the Cedar Woodlands 1 development agreement was never filed with the county, unlike Cedar Woodlands 2 development agreement, the termination letter that the city sent to Cedar Woodlands 1 addressed this exact issue as follows, and I have a copy of it here. In the event the October 31st, 2003 developer agreement was recorded against the development property with the Olmsted County Recorder's Office, the city will sign a release of the same for recording purposes. If that is the case, please provide me a copy of the recorded development agreement, including document number, and our attorney will prepare the necessary release for recording. These statements would indicate the city would move forward with the termination regardless if the agreement was recorded with the county or not, which should avoid any concern or contention that Cedar Woodlands 2 agreement was recorded. We would gladly provide additional information and context upon request as you discuss the future of Outlaw I. Thank you.
Second call for public forum.
Paul Janetto, 1090 Cedar Drive. I just wanted to provide additional context to what Brian Button just talked about regarding Cedar Woodlands 2 request to the city to maintain ownership of the land where our drain field was located. When Russ Meyer, the developer of Cedar Woodlands 2, turned the land over to Cedar Woodlands 2 HOA, I was president at the time. We were never told about any pre-existing development agreement. Instead, Russ said he wanted to turn the land over to the HOA. As a result, we had the title legally changed. We purchased insurance for the land, and we continued to maintain it, putting up fencing and mowing it for the past 9 years. It wasn't until 2023 when we noticed the HOA covenant actually stated the land would be turned over to the city after sewer was connected. At that time, the HOA did seek legal counsel to see if that could be updated, which was done and filed prior to city sewer connection. After this, we also learned that Cedar Woodland 1 had gone to the city to release its drain field and land back to Cedar Woodland 1 HOA at no charge, despite that they also had a development agreement. In both cases, Cedar Woodland 1 and Cedar Woodland 2, the developer was no longer in business nor a part of the HOA. Therefore, the city attorney had advised city council to terminate the development agreement for Cedar Woodlands 1 and keep the land with Cedar Woodlands 1 HOA. Cedar Woodlands 2 is just asking for the exact same thing. We're asking for consistency in government policy and decisions. We have been under the knowledge that we own the land, maintained the land, insured the land. We are not contacted by the city to even transfer the land title until after we are hooked up to city sewer. Our motivation is actually not financial. In fact, Cedar Woodlands 2 HOA wants to work with Hamilton or any developer that wants to develop that land. In the end, I just urge the city council to be consistent with its past decisions on the same issue. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thanks, Paul.
I'd like to speak public forum.
And Gunner, this is my husband Art. We live at 810 Forest Lane Southwest. We're here this evening to respectfully request the review of the location of our curb stop. We've had several of your vendors that you suggested out to review our situation, as well as we've had some additional vendors on our own come and look, all of who agree that it's not a great situation. Several of you in this room have been out there and reviewed it. And we just would like to have you reconsider where that's at. Art, if you want to go into a little bit detail, most of you or some of you that have been out there understand, but just to bring some of the others up to.
You got a curb stop in front of a concrete culvert, which Fitzgerald chewed it up, jumping over it with a skid steer with tracks and put tracks on top of my concrete driveway and broke that down. What I'm suggesting to do to save money, and I talked to Alex, the next door neighbor tonight, he's got a real estate meeting. I'm speaking for him. He said, that's a great idea. We're gonna drill 3 holes, 8 feet down, 8 feet wide, not 4 or even 5. The only way Alex can drill from my property, behind his property, they took the curb stop and put it up on his property. And where I want my curb stop is there too. Alex said it shouldn't be in the ditch in front of that culvert. So I'm posing to go ahead, drill 1 hole where his curb stop is, use the same hole, we share the cost of that hole, we're only gonna drill 3 holes instead of 4 or even 5. The problem with his yard, it's a swimming pool. And if you back in there with a directional drilling, the water's gotta be hooked up there. You didn't think about that, I did. And so we looked at it today. I said, that's the only sensible thing to do to save money. He was all in favor of that. D Cook is coming there tomorrow to look at it, to see what they're gonna do. It doesn't make any sense to drill 4 holes when you set his curb stop back on top of the hill, back 30 feet. And mine is down in front of the culvert within 3 feet. It's simple. It's just somebody wasn't thinking and they didn't talk to us before they did it. It's that simple.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Third and final call for public forum. Seeing none, we'll close public hearing at 6:41. Time is a public hearing. It's a public hearing on a proposed sewer system improvement at Riverbend Estate subdivision, sanitary sewer systems improvements. Joe, you want to speak briefly to it?
Yeah.
Have comments?
Absolutely. Well, we do have public hearing handout tonight, and what I typically like to do is go through the public hearing handout. So everybody have one of these that wants one. We did have a few over there. There's probably a few extra. Council also had the public hearing handout in your packet. But the public hearing is part of the assessment process. And a few months ago, we presented the feasibility report for an improvement to serve Riverbend Estates subdivision with municipal sewer. Currently, Riverbend Estates is connected to a private sanitary sewer collection system that conveys wastewater to a central private septic system that treats wastewater on outlet A. And really what we're here to talk about again tonight is how Riverbend Estates could be served by the municipal wastewater system. And so we're really talking about 17 lots that were platted in conjunction with Riverbend Estates. All of them have been developed and they're located along Riverwood Court Southwest. A little bit of background information as talked about in the handout. In February 2022, Riverbend Estates Homeowners Association contacted the city of Orinoco as we advanced the wastewater collection conveyance improvement project and asked if they could be part of the project. And at that time, we said that we would look at that in the future and we would connect them when we had the ability to connect them and our sewer system was active. Obviously, that did happen here this last spring and the wastewater treatment plant began operation. Subsequently, I did talk to the city council earlier this spring, given the chance, or given the situation with Fitzgerald nearing completion of their sanitary sewer force main work. And we're also doing street patching in town. Thought it was a good time to construct some of the infrastructure necessary to serve Riverbend Estates, specifically the pipe in the road and some of the force main improvements. So the council did approve that and we went ahead and made those improvements. We stopped short of serving Riverbend Estates, wanting to go through the assessment process and public hearing process, and that's again why we're here today. So we've done that. The proposed improvements to transition or divert the Riverbend Estates wastewater flows from the existing lift station, which pumps to the septic system, the private septic system, is we would have to construct some force main. That force main would essentially extend from the lift station to the existing um, gravity sanitary sewer manhole on Riverwood Drive Southwest, some 450 feet away from the existing lift station. So in conjunction with that, there'd have to be a street excavation that was done and a street repair that was partially done and will soon be completed. In conjunction with surface improvements, turf restoration, topsoil replacement, those types of things. Then in conjunction with that, as we approach the lift station, we have to install some valving and reconfigure how the 3 existing pumps within the lift station pump to or discharge wastewater. Currently, they discharge to 3 separate drain fields, and we need to combine them within a manifold, put valving on them so they can be isolated, and then connect them to the 1 force main that goes to the gravity sanitary sewer system. And so that's really the sanitary sewer improvements. In conjunction with that, we need to make some modifications to the existing lift station. The existing lift station was constructed in about 2018 and is in really pretty good shape. But we do need to upgrade it in the sense that we need to or want to add an alarm with a dialer so that if there is an issue, high water elevation, power outage, something like that, it provides or it dials out and provides city staff with an alarm so they know something's wrong so that they can react to that issue and address it. The other thing is we need to install an electrical connection that allows us to connect a generator. If there is a power outage, we want to have the opportunity to be able to use one of the city's mobile generators to power that facility, and we need to install the appropriate receptacles so that we can essentially plug that generator into the lift station and power it. And then we also have to do some other things about, essentially diverting power, installing a transfer switch and some other minor electrical improvements. And so that really constitutes the proposed improvements. So in total, on the second sheet, Roman numeral number 3, you see the project cost for the improvements. If you kind of look down the line in that table, you see the total estimated construction cost, total about $55,400. We added a little bit of contingency and a factor for engineering, construction, and administration. And the total project cost equals about $67,008. Now that is an estimated cost. I will say that since the feasibility report has been completed, and actually I prepared this handout, we have gotten a little bit more information from the contractor about the final electrical costs. They're about $2,000 higher than what we estimated here. So the project costs are probably going to go up about $2,000. With that said, we know what the project costs are. We can, the city has a policy of assessing these types of improvements to benefiting property owners. In fact, just in 2022, we completed an assessment process for the larger wastewater project. And we're using the same methodology for the assessment here. So to that, if you go down to item 4 and look at that table, you can see how the assessments to the benefiting property owners are calculated. The assessments are based on a per ERU equivalent residential unit basis. And so essentially an equivalent residential unit is a single family home. Within that subdivision, there are 17 equivalent residential homes or units or 17 homes. So there are 3 components of the fee structure that we would be assessing to benefiting property owners. First, the wastewater investment fee, the plant investment fee, the PIF. In 2022, that fee was assessed to each ERU at a rate of $3,400 to $39. That's essentially the fee, everybody's proportionate cost that connected to it, plus all of the future connections over the next 20 years to pay for the wastewater treatment plant. The trunk sewer availability charge, the SAC charge, is similar to the PIF charge. Everybody that connected to it or will connect to it pays that cost. And essentially that's for the larger trunk sewer mains, the big lift stations, the conveyance components of the collection system. So everybody pays that cost. Note that it's been 2 years since those costs were levied or assessed to the benefiting property owners, and the council adopted a policy that they increase 5% per year. And so if we increase those fees 5% for 2023 and 2024, you can see that the PIF is $3,791 per ERU, and the SAC is $1,346 per ERU. That brings us to the last line, the lateral sewer connection charge. Well, the lateral sewer connection charge simply takes the lateral sewer project cost that we calculated and documented above in table 3, that's $67,000, and we divided amongst the property owners. Okay, and so 67,000 divided by 17 is about 3,942. So if you take those 3 numbers, you add them up, you get an estimated assessment of about $9,079.31. I expect that assessment will go up when the final project costs come in, and we do the final assessment hearing later this fall, probably by a couple $100. The city is proposing to assess the improvements on over a 10-year term at about an interest rate of 5% to the property owners. And so, not that it shows up like that, but just kind of do the math. It equates to about $97 a month. And so the total amount to be assessed and the assessment revenue generated from this project would be about $154,346. It should be noted also that, this is really part of a larger project, the Phase 1A wastewater project, in which we constructed about a $43 million project, and the city's local share of that project cost is about $11.3 million, which has been financed through the Public Facilities Authority and is being repaid over the next 30 years. So I just, again, want to reiterate that this process and the methodology we used is consistent with what we used in 2022 with some adjustments in inflation. And in fact, the rate that was assessed in 2022 was $8,817 per ERU. So we're just slightly higher than that, and with inflation, as it has been over the last 2 years, it's understandable and perhaps reasonable that it is where it is. That said, the project schedule moving forward, we talked about the fact that in July 16th, we presented the feasibility report for the council. The council ordered the public hearing on improvements. That's tonight. These improvements are being constructed via a change order to the Phase 1A project. So there isn't a bidding process that we necessarily have to go through. Most of the costs that we're using are actual bid unit prices that the contractor provided as in conjunction with the larger multi-million-dollar project. And so we do get a benefit in terms of the economy of scale of the work that that's the work that we're doing. We did have a few items, for example, the electrical work. We did have to get quotes from the electrical contractor, but it's the same contractor that we've used for all of the lift stations and in fact the wastewater treatment facility. So they're familiar with what we need and what needs to be done. The next step in the process, of course, tonight, this is the public hearing, and this is an opportunity for the city to kind of present what's being proposed and the project cost and how we would assess it. It's your opportunity to ask questions if you have any. And voice any concerns that you have. Kind of moving forward, we're proposing to schedule a public hearing. That public hearing would probably be about October 15th. And assuming that the council chooses to move that forward, we would anticipate the assessments beginning or being certified to the county this year yet. And then they would appear on your property taxes over the next 10 years. And so property taxes are paid in 2 increments a year. The first one's typically due in May, and in this case, it would be due in May of 2025. My contact information is on the public hearing handout. If you have questions, certainly now would be a great time, but if you want to reach out to me separately and give me a call or send me an email, you're welcome to do that as well. Questions of the public or council?
Well, I think we'll just go ahead and have a public hearing first, from the public first, then we'll circle back around to the council discussion then.
Sounds good.
So if there's anybody that would like to speak at the public hearing, this is an opportunity for you to come forward and ask questions or state your comments one way or the other.
I guess I just
Second
say,
call for public hearing. Please come to the podium.
I'm Brian Decker. I live in Riverwood Court. And I'm president of the HOA and we're supportive of this as we have been. And we've had dialogue internally about the numbers that Joe provided previously. And so far, we're on board to continue forward. Appreciate the support.
What was the street address? I'm sorry.
1494 Riverwood Court Southwest.
Thank you. Second call for public forum, public hearing. And third and final call for public hearing. That will close the public hearing at 7:56. So with that, I'll make a motion to accept resolution 2024-31 declaring cost to be assessed and ordering preparation of post assessment.
I'll second that.
Discussion by council.
Yeah, what's the agreement on the drain field on that?
So
We don't run into another drain field issue. Who owns what?
the agreement for the drain field, I actually cut out the excerpt from the development agreement and included in the feasibility report if you want to read it verbatim, but essentially it says that the developer is responsible for decommissioning that drain field, so that means pumping and decommissioning it. They retain the property ownership and they are free to develop that. So I would expect that at some point they will subdivide that outlot, plat it, subdivide it, and redevelop it after the system is decommissioned. And of course, after we complete the connection, which should be completed this fall.
How large is the drain field? What's the?
It's about,
who's the developer?
the drain field's just under 40,000 square feet, so just under, you know, that creates a little bit of an issue on that 20,000 square foot issue, but it's really close. The developer is Paul Meyer of, Meyer Companies. So technically, I think the HOA, if you look on the county's website, is the owner, but you have an agreement that you will transfer that ownership back to the developer to decommission the facility as soon as you're
He's on the
connected.
hook. Take it from there. Once we abandon, he's on the hook for everything at that point.
Good question.
I have a question about, can they prepay the assessment?
They can. All of that type of information,
I mean,
all of that type of information will be provided at the assessment hearing. If you're interested, in fact, I've got the public hearing for the assessment on November 1st of 2022 contains all that information. But the answer to your question is you can prepay the assessment and avoid any interest costs. You have, I think, 30 days after the, no. How long do you have, Mike? You essentially have until the assessment's certified, I think, so until about around December 1st or so, I think. But the specific details will be in a sheet that gets mailed to you and will be provided at the public hearing or the assessment hearing. So all of this stuff will get mailed to you again. And all of the details, the interest rate, the term, the cost, deferment options, prepayment options, all of that stuff is detailed out and at length within the documents that will be mailed to you.
Any other comments, questions?
You're talking about another public hearing on October 15th. That's an assessment hearing.
That would be an assessment hearing, yep.
How big did you say that lot is where the current system is, Joe?
if you're, it's just a little over 40,000 square feet if memory serves you.
So that's outlot A and G. There's two outlets there.
Well, the city owns Outlet G.
That's right.
Yep, and we would want to maintain ownership of Outlet G. But Outlet A could be redeveloped, essentially split into probably 2 lots. And I think it's just under an acre.
Is outlet G more or less, utility easement, is that what that is?
No, it's an outlot. It's a,
big, it's a line.
yeah, it's essentially an extension of the right of way, if you will. It's a very small piece, but there were some reasons that during the planning process that was outlotted and, or designated as an outlot and then deeded to the city. So the city has title to it.
Any other comments? Seeing none, take the voice vote, on the resolution.
Mayor Ikorst,
Aye.
Counselor Pendergrass,
Aye.
Counselor Richards.
Aye.
Counselor Phillips,
Aye.
Counselor DeLeonic.
Aye.
So we'll proceed with construction of the remaining, you know, the final connection, the electrical improvements. I guess that's the council's intent. Yeah, I guess that's included in the change order too, which we'll approve tonight, so. That makes sense. Okay,
Thank you.
sorry.
Okay, next item is our 2023 financial audit. Andrew, please, from here. We have some copies in front of council members.
Thanks for having me tonight. I'm Lindy with Smith Schaefer, and we are contracted to perform the audit for the city of Orinoco for the year ended December 31st, 2023. I did hand out to council the actual audited financial statement, and then also a PowerPoint in there, and then a letter as well. So we'll start off with the PowerPoint here. We're not going to walk through the actual audited financial statement. We did sit down with members of city management last week and went through the numbers and finalized the numbers. Everything comes directly out of that audited financial statement into the PowerPoint. So with that said, we'll slip to slide 2 there. So our audit opinion is a clean, unmodified opinion, which means we believe everything is fairly stated in accordance with GAAP. It is the highest level of assurance you can receive on the financial statement. It provides reasonable, not absolute assurance that the financials are free from material misstatement, as we do not look at every single transaction that occurs throughout the year. We take a risk-based approach and make selections based off those perceived risks. With that said, anything that we did request for supporting documentation was provided to us, so the city become represents the expenditure throughout the year. Financial statement that I did mention, we did sit down with Jason and Renee on August 13th and went through the financial statements more line by line detail. And then the management discussion and analysis was prepared by the city. Legal compliance, there's about 7 different areas of testing that we have to do to comply with state statute. We did not note any issues with any of our testing noted. There's conflict of interest, collateral for public funds, public indebtedness, TIFs, miscellaneous claims and disbursements, and your bids. So as we go through here, again, if there's any questions about anything I'm saying, please feel free to stop me as we go through. And then the letter that I handed out, there is just 2 findings that are in the financial statement that we've had in the past, the limited personnel able to segregate accounting duties, and then the financial statement preparation. We prepared the financial statement for you and related to that. And then the letter, also there is some use of some estimates such as pension liability, depreciation. We didn't have any disagreements with management related to that. And then I will just point out, the city did receive over $750,000 in federal awards with the loan, so there will be a single audit that is due to the Federal Clearinghouse by 9/30. So we'll get that additional audit taken care of by then as well. On slide 3, then we look at the different fund types. So the general fund is the main operations of the city. There's 2 special revenue funds. There's 5 debt service funds and 2 capital project funds. And then the enterprise funds, there's two, the water utility, and then we did start the sewer utility in 2023, but there was no revenues, just kind of some startup expenditures in the sewer at that. Slide 4 is the brief overview of the general fund operations. The green is going to be the revenues, the gold is going to, or the orange is going to be the expenditures. The blue is any transfers in or out, and then the change in fund balance in the yellow. The last 4 years, the city has had positive operations in the general fund. In the current year in 2023, our revenues in the green are up about 145,000 to 1,360,000. Expenditures are also up about 220,000 to 1,240,000. There's a $100,000 transfer into the CIP 425 fund as according to the budget, and then ended the year with positive operations in the general fund of about 16,000. Pretty much break even in the general fund with that transfer out. On slide 6, then we get into your general tax levy. So we did see an increase in your general tax levy. The levy was $1,075,000, collections of $1,078,000. Collections were up about $160,000 from the prior year. General tax levy represents about 11%. But when you exclude the $7.8 million of grants that were received for the wastewater treatment facility, it equals about 56% of the governmental revenues that are coming in. So governmental revenues is going to be anything coming in other than your water utility rates. So that 56% was the same as it was in 2022. So pretty consistent where your fundings are coming in from government operations. Another funding source for the cities is local government aid on slide 7. So I received about 84,000, down about 7,000 from the prior year. That's about 4% when you exclude it. So in 2024, though, it's going up to 143,000. So you will receive about 60,000 more in LGA with a slight decrease in 2023. Slide 8 just illustrates those two charts that I talked about, the property taxes in the blue and your local government aid in the green. You can see that the gap was much closer back in 2019 than it was in 2023. It's everything is costing more, prices are increasing. So we've had to increase the levy to keep up with increasing costs. And then the local government aid has remained relatively flat, not kicking in anymore for those expenditures. Slide 10, then we start getting into your expenditures. So this is the general government expenditures. This is the mayor, cultural, finance and administration, elections, professional services, and economic development. Total expenditures just under 460,000, up about 100,000 from the prior year. Most of the increase was related to professional fees, and then the city also spent about 87,000 of the ARPA funds that fell into the governmental fund. So the general fund operations was not really up that much. It was really up about 12,000 if you take out that 87 that was spent on signs, sound and media, and some drainage. That was all just fell in the general government category where those ARPA expenditures did fall into. Public safety expenditures on slide 11 then spent a total of about 305,000 in the current year, up about 21,000 from the prior year. This is police protection, fire protection, building inspections, planning and zoning, first responders, and emergency operations center. So up mostly due to salaries and some engineering fees. The fire or first responders was up about 17,000 with additional supplies and training. Planning and zoning was down about 37,000, and then fire was up about 38,000 with repair and maintenance, some garage doors and some electric work, and then also some turnout gear that was purchased in the fire. Public works then, so this is the highways, streets, roads, snow removal, water and sewer improvements, and general maintenance. So the top category there, we break out the water and sewer improvements there. So spent a little over just under 12,700,000 in the current year, down about 11 million as that project was mostly completed in 2022 and went into 2023 and a little bit more into 2024. The blue on the bottom is going to be the actual operating expenditures for the streets and highways, up about 67,000, and mostly due to repair and maintenance. The Person Brothers, about 56,000 of that was the seal coat. Culture and recreation, community center, parks and recreation, and Gold Rush. Total expenditures about 155,000, total down about 9,000 from the prior year. Operating in the blue, up slightly, but pretty consistent operating expenditures the last 3 years from culture and recreation. Slide 14 then just looks at the different breakdowns there. You can see in the current year, the bold color, the general government was the highest just with spending those ARPA funds, and that's just the classification of where those expenses are being made, followed by the public works and then public safety. Slide 16, then we look at your general fund fund balance. So one metric that is used if you take your total expenditures, which are in the green, and divide it by your unassigned fund balance, which is in the orange color, to get how much of your percentage of your reserves are on hand. So you're at about 94%, so kind of right where you've been the last 5 years. They're kind of right in the middle, and been down to 86 up to 115. So 94 is kind of right in the middle where you are. So still in a healthy position there. Your actual unassigned fund balance changed about $1,000. So not much change in your actual general fund balance. Just that percentage decreased with those additional expenditures, which I did mention, 87,000 of those ARPA funds that are not reoccurring expenditures going through there. Water and sewer improvement fund balance on slide 17 is at a deficit of about 695,000. That's just due to the timing of when those draws are requested. It's just the timing issue related to that. Capital improvement fund balance on slide 18. So this is the 425 fund. Total fund balance 844,000. Total expenditures in the fund was about 129,000. So this does include the $100,000 transfer coming in from the general fund into the CIP fund. There was a trailer purchased, 250, a fire skid, and a mower coming out of the capital improvement fund balance. So capital improvement fund balance did have a slight decrease, but pretty much consistent the last 3 years on where those fund balances are. Slide 19 then is the other two special revenue funds that are there. The Gold Rush Fund, which not much activity is going through there. More of community events kind of flowing through there at this point, but the fund technically still named the Gold Rush Fund. And then the TIF 1-1, about 28,000 in fund balance. Debt service fund. There's 5 general obligation bonds that are outstanding. The 2013 A is paid off in 2029, about 162,000. The 2017 A's got 32,000 is paid off in 2025. The last 3 there are all bonds that are related to the ongoing project. That draws were made of about a little over 5.3 million in debt in the current year to fund that project. And then the water fund has additional PFA loan of 2009 outstanding with about 400,000 that's paid off in 2020. Slide 24 then gets us into the water fund utility operations. So the green is going to be the revenues. The orange on the right of that is going to be your expenses, operating expenses, depreciation, and the green on top of those expenses. We separate out depreciation just because it's really not a non-cash, or it's a non-cash item, and then any net loss on the right there. So did operate at a net loss of about 93,000. But if you look, your revenues were up about 32,000 the current year, or 15%, bringing in about 251,000. Your operating expenditures were about 206,000. So you are positive before depreciation is totaled in there. So a net loss of that 93,000. So if we look on slide 25, then the green is going to be your cash balance. The blue is any debt outstanding. Cash balance was about 100,000, down about 23,000 from the prior year, and then advances from other funds went down about 23,000. So they're paying back that 10 years, about 23,000 per year that advanced from the general fund and the water and sewer improvement fund. So without that payback of that loan of the 23,000, the water funds just pretty much break even on the cash. But since they had to pay that back, we did see a little decrease in our cash position in the water utility. And the last slide there, just the general fund summary there. So the general fund resulted in a surplus of about 17,000 that was added to your general fund balance of 1,332,000. Unassigned reserves equal 1,168,000, or 94% of the general fund expenditures. The water and sewer improvement fund has a deficit fund balance of about 695,000, as that is the timing when those draws come in from the PFA. Capital improvement fund has a balance of 844,000 for future improvements. All debt payments were paid timely. And then the water utility fund rates should continue to be evaluated to build reserves for future needs. And just a reminder, we'll complete that single audit that is due to the Federal Clearinghouse on September 30th. And then we did submit the state reporting form and the financial to the state on August 15th, which was the extended due date that we were provided. Any questions on anything I went through? I know I went through a lot of numbers pretty quickly there. Any questions to clarify or general questions?
So one question on page 25. The debt outstanding has been increasing, but that's gonna
Yep, that's
shoot up here
Yep.
substantially with our water and sewer.
Yep, so once that project's completed, we'll add a sewer fund and the sewer debt will transfer all that. Right now, we're keeping track of it in those debt service funds and the capital project funds. Upon completion, we'll move it all over to the sewer, so the sewer will take on the debt, they'll take on the assets and depreciate it. So once that project reaches completion, it will get filled in there. So this blue here is the 2009 TFA loan that's paid off in 2009.
Any other comments for Andrew? Very good, Andrew. Thank you very much. Next year should be exciting. See Sergeant Wren is here. There's a report in your packet. It's a status report. Does anybody have any questions for Sergeant Wren? Or do you have anything to add to your report?
Good evening, Sergeant Wren. I don't have anything of note to report. Pretty much for the month of July, a majority of our calls for service came from traffic stops and community service. So one of the big complaints we receive is speeding through town, not stopping at stop signs. So majority of our work up here during our time is spent traffic enforcement, doing that stuff on Minnesota Avenue, Lake Shady, stop signs around town. So it looks like there was 18 traffic stops. I don't know how many were issued citations versus just education. Changing the speed limit had some effects. So we usually give some grace period for people to, start to slow down and realize, hey, it's only 33 here instead of 40 or whatever the case might be. Another big aspect of this was community service. So that could be anything from stopping out here, talking with city staff about issues going on around the city or complaints. Going through the parks, making sure there's not people in the parks after hours, setting up camps and stuff of that nature. But other than that, there was nothing of real note, nothing that affected the whole community. It was all individual residents types calls and stuff like that. So in general, everything's been going pretty well up here as far as I've heard. So you guys have any comments, questions, concerns?
I think too, with our change on our speed limits on Minnesota Avenue, we could just kind of monitor that as well, see how well they're compliant.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. I've been up here, we're on days, so I've been up here every day that we've worked and it's been pretty good. The speed limit sign flashing is a good reminder for people if we're not up here too. So it's been pretty well received, it seems like, from the community. I mean, we get a couple here and there that still go through there pretty quickly, but by and large, it's been pretty good, so.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Next one is Public Works. Was there a monthly update? There's nothing in that packet, right?
Nothing formal at all.
Okay. Water and sewer. We have a recommended approval of change order number 3 with Fitzgerald Excavating and Trucking for 136, that's 138,000. $659.26.
I think it's 138, 832, 86.
Oh, I'm sorry, I read the order. Yeah, 138, 832, 86. I make a motion, we approve change order number 3 with Fitzgerald Excavating and Trucking for the $138,832.86.
Instead of 136, it's 138, what?
832 is 86.
I'll second.
Okay. All right. Discussion. Water and sewer reviewed it in quite a lot of detail, and, so it's the water and sewer's recommendation to the committee to recommend approval of the change order. It's encompassing a lot of different areas, and, you can see by the number of pages, but so the sewer committee is recommending approval. Are there any comments or anything like that? Ask of, Joe?
Most of those are changes on the motors, right, for the three-phase?
Item A is the two water services under Fifth Street, that we directional drilled, through rock. Item B is the lift station, for the three-phase, the VFD, variable frequency drives for the, lift station to go to three-phase power at lift station 1A. Item C is, a $2,153 increase in the private utility allowance that essentially we paid People's Service and the gas company to extend electric and gas to the lift stations. Item D is for Riverbend Estates. We kind of talked about that tonight, of course. And item E is for the construction of street repairs, including bituminous mat, some bituminous patching and overlay of 3 streets: 2nd Street Southwest, 2nd Third Street, 2nd Street Southeast, from 6th Street Southeast to about 150 feet south of Timberline, on 3rd Street Southwest, west of Minnesota Avenue, and then on 2nd Avenue Southwest, south of 3rd Street Southwest. So on those 3 street segments, they got pretty beat up in construction. And we've negotiated a process where there's 13 patches that would occur on those streets. And we would fill the patches in with 2.5 inches of new bituminous, and then we would overlay the entire pavement with a new 1.5 inch wear course. And so we negotiated this with the contractor. The contractor would be doing all of the removals, the saw cutting, and the preparation for those patches at no cost to the city. And then Matthew, Sand and Gravel, and the contractor Fitzgerald would be placing the patches and the wear course at the 2021 bid unit prices. So in total, the total cost is about $48,345 plus a 10% markup for Fitzgerald. But we get streets that are gonna look and perform much better and extend their life much longer. And so we went through this process. We negotiated with the contractor. We got it approved by the health department and by the MPCA. And so we're able to fund this through our loan. On page 3, you can see the loan split. On the bottom of page 3, the drinking water, the water fund would pay about $45,000. The sewer fund would pay about almost $94,000. I'm sorry. That's the total change order. The cost for the street repairs get split 50-50 between the sewer and water. I was kind of referencing for the total project or the total change order. But I was excited to have both the health department and the MPCA approve this and allow us to finance it over the 20 and 30-year terms of the loan. And we essentially get a newly surfaced street out of it. They took a beating. The contractor came around and they're willing to kind of step up and do their share, recognizing they bore some responsibility here too. But the streets were far from new when we initiated the project, and some of the pavements are frankly pretty thin. And that probably contributed to the deterioration of them with the construction traffic over them. So, that's what's kind of being proposed.
I have a question for you in terms of streets. I know on First Street, they had to tear up a big section, you know, just shy of the bottom.
First Street and Northwest.
Yeah, on the west side.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had to tear out a big section. It's quite a bit lower. Do you know, is that gonna be a part of this, or is that coming? at
No, the
different time?
contractor does pay for those types of,
Okay.
they had to dig it up because there was an issue with the force main was leaking.
Oh, okay.
And so they dug it up and they repaired it. The wear course will go on that probably this week, maybe
Okay.
even tomorrow.
Oh.
If you notice, by the way, they're paving.
Yeah, that's great.
And by the way, they want to start the removals on this tomorrow if you prove it tonight for those streets. They will be done, well, they might be done by Saturday.
After Gold Rush, that's pretty.
We did delay everything
Oh, yeah.
because of Gold Rush a couple of weeks. Not we, we asked the contractor, and they graciously did that. Other questions? I should also mention that there is a reason, the change order in your packet had a $36,000 total, and this one has a $38,000 total. That $2,000 increase was for the Riverbend lift station upgrades. Within the change order, we had previously included an allowance, an estimate of what the cost would be from the electrical contractor because they were slow to send it back to us. Well, they got it back to us. And it was $2,173 higher than the allowance amount in total. And so I updated the numbers so that we don't have to have an allowance anymore. It's just their number.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved? Planning and update on the tentative open house for the treatment plant and the project, overall project is September 13th at 10, and Kane and I and Joe will be putting together our invite list in preparation of what we want to present and share, so. WSB project update. See in your packet, there's a action item with Stantec Components Consulting Services in conjunction with WSB requests the approval of additional funds to provide technical review, comment, coordination, and project management on an hourly basis plus reimbursable expenses in accordance with Stantec's master service agreement with the city of Orinoco. Stantec's labor and expenses for the work is estimated to be within the range of $4,500 to $6,500 per their approved proposal. With that, I make a motion, we approve additional funds up to $6,500 for Stantec's technical review, comment, coordination, and project management with WSB for updating city zoning ordinances. Is there a second?
Do a second just for discussion. So help me understand. So
Right now, this has not gone to planning and zoning first, okay, and this has got to go to planning and zoning first.
Oh,
Before it comes to city, so this has got to be put back on the planning and zoning for next month. Nothing has been done with planning and zoning. The first time we saw this is what came in the packet.
so have you had any discussions about any of these items?
No. So I'm gonna put that, I would recommend we put that off till next month.
What's that?
Put it off till next month so that we have a chance to go through planning and zoning first. Follow the proper procedures.
So, and help me understand. So we have WSB writing it. And we're having Santec review what they put together?
I believe WSB reached out to us asking for their permission to help.
asking.
But so they gotta come to planning
So
and zoning
WSB
first,
was
yeah.
asking for Stantec's help.
Yeah,
Yes.
but they have to come to the planning and zoning first for us, because we did the RFP.
Lori called me actually and asked if I would be willing to review and provide comment on certain segments of the zoning code relating to the floodplain ordinance and the shoreline ordinance and specifically the subdivision ordinance. Obviously, we deal with that and they're pretty detailed and having some knowledge of what we've done in the past and having an understanding of how our utility code is set up and how we
And
do things helped. So she asked me and I put the proposal together as Jason asked, so.
no, I did. I think the proper procedure with this is to go through planning and zoning first, okay, and then from there to come to council to do that, so.
I agree.
Is that monthly delay something going to affect the schedule of the project?
Well, I think it will. She was asking, she's trying to move things along quickly and but doesn't matter to me.
Still a December completion, correct?
I don't have the date on it. We did the public input on that and it worked out really good with Gold Rush and also for National Night Out. Gold Rush, of course, just finished last week, and so they're working on putting that information together off of that. Our next steering committee meeting is September 30th. But we'll be able to work on this and go through it, but I would like to go through planning and zoning since they are the ones that are in charge of that and then from there back to council again. It's a proper way to do
I
it.
remember talking about, it's about a year-long project. You didn't start till like March.
It'll get started in January, that's for sure. But anyway, yeah, no, I think this has got to go back through planning and zoning.
So who's going to go back to Lori then and say that?
Well, I've already had a conversation with Kathy. Kathy's the chair of planning and zoning and Kathy's working on that with Lori.
I just want to make sure that she's aware of it. So, okay. I will withdraw my motion and I make a motion to table this to the September 16th, 17th. Or 17th. For P and Z to review it on September the 12th. Your second.
I did.
Are we gonna be able to get it from P and Z to city council in 5 days?
Well, I think that we've got to bring it through P and Z.
I understand. that,
There may not be enough time depending on what all the changes are. I think make that determination then. We haven't seen it.
You can have a special meeting, I guess, too. That's important enough to keep the project on schedule.
It's still moving.
All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Table that to September. Next item is resolution 2024-30. So declaring a hazardous building and ordering removal of hazardous conditions of raising of the hazardous building. Let's go ahead and make a motion. We can have some discussions on this. Make a motion to accept resolution 2024-30, declaring a hazardous building and ordering removal of hazardous conditions on buildings.
I'll second that.
Have those homeowners applied for a permit for this
It's my understanding.
on their own?
Yes,
Do
they got submitted this week.
you have a time when that's going to be back or? So there's a lot of information in the resolution. If you have had a chance to read it. Go to page 2, 10 pages, but it has all the background and CMX photographs, letters written, August 13th to Mary Dash Smith regarding what she needs to do. All dependent on this resolution. They were here earlier this evening. Both Steve, her friend, and Mary Dash Smith were here. And Mike and I talked briefly with them. I thought they were going to come to the meeting, but they decided not to stay. So what we talked about and what we discussed in the meeting of this resolution and is that they, this has been going on for some time. And, but I do sense a sense of sincerity in doing this. They're in the process of getting a contractor agreement. And, that's something they will bring to us. If we were to extend this to the September 17th meeting. That they will, and it's also tied in with another September date too, that we've been talking about.
September date for this issue?
The demolition, the contractor being started.
Well, so yeah, I mean, we talked to them, I mean, they seem sincere, but everybody seems sincere. And I flat out told this guy right to his face, until your feet are directly in the coals, you're not gonna do anything. And it's not because he's a dishonest person, it's not because he's a bad person. It's just, that's how Americans are. We're not responsible. As a group, we're just not responsible. And we don't like doing things, we like telling lies and doing bad stuff, and that's just who we are. So until we put their feet right in the fire, they won't do it. So that's my view of it. But the flip side of that is, I think it's expensive. So you have to understand, for us to do this, to our benefit that they do this. They did seem sincere, but I've been tricked before. I mean, a lot of people seem sincere and they're just not sincere, not honest. So I guess you can do what you want. It's up to you. I told them it's not up to me, it's up to them. So options, I think you could adopt this resolution today, but tell me not to move forward with it in hopes that they actually do something. Which I agree, they are sincere. He really did seem like they had the same contractor, he said, that had done the original work. That same guy was gonna do the demolition. So I think he's going to do that, and it's way to our benefit that they do that, because otherwise you're gonna have to spend thousands of dollars. I mean, that's gonna come out of the city budget just to get to the court order. And then once you get the court order, then you're gonna spend, I don't even know how much, a lot to tear that down and fix it. So it's to our benefit, cheapest for the city, best for the city if they do it. I'm not 100% sure they're gonna do it.
Because the last time they did the demolition, how long did that take for them to do that? I
Well,
mean,
that's what I told him. He already backtracked in the same conversation with, we were talking about it. He's like, well, if we give you till next month, he's like, oh, well, maybe, and if we can't get that contract, maybe we'll get a different contractor. No. That's not how contractors work. And you're already backing out of it. And you see what I'm saying? He got it. I got through to him. I think I got
I think
through.
he
to him.
did, and we talked about coming back in September. He's got 30 days. You bring a signed contract with a contractor and with a completion date, all in the contract.
Yeah, and if he does that, if he brings like a reputable contractor, a real company that says they have a date they're gonna do it, they pull the permit, they've got a contract that proves financing.
That they've paid.
That they paid or put a down payment or
Yeah,
something.
And
It's to your benefit that they do that.
Sure.
right,
I am not if you give them 30 days, give them 30 days, fine. I'm not warranting that it's gonna work. I mean, I give it
and can we be?
maybe better than 50-50. I get it, give it 70-30.
I think he'll have a contract, may not be done or started.
And what I told the guys, I honestly don't think they're being deliberately obstructionist. I think what they're doing, this woman was suffering from what I would consider anxiety, like crippling anxiety. And I just don't think, it's not that they don't want to help. It's not that they don't want to do it. It's just that they just don't have
She's a hard girl.
the wherewithal and the follow through. And some people just don't have the wherewithal. And I think this guy is serious. I think he's gonna try, but just don't blame me if we come back in 30 days and nothing's done. And I give it.
Well, let me ask, can we be in contact with the contractor that has, you know, so if we have a contract, they prove contract and that it's paid,
Right.
could it be a situation where we're in contact with the contractor if they back out?
Well, that's
the
why I wanted the
contractor lets
guy-
us know.
This woman was shaking. She had to leave. She couldn't do it, but I was hoping that guy would come so you could ask him that directly.
Yes, he drove.
And he didn't,
Has
so
Steve come?
he was here. I
Yeah.
mean, he's a nice gentleman. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I know him.
And I met.
he's a nice gentleman. I talked to him for a while. He means well. I don't know if he can follow through at this point.
I think it's an overwhelming thing.
Yeah.
You know, it definitely is, but.
So, but they want to follow through. They want to do it and they do understand it's in their best interest too. I mean, you know, it's in everybody's best interest. I think they do also. I really do think they understand that it's dangerous, that the property is dangerous. I think they're not disputing that issue, really. So I guess if it were me, again, don't blame me. It doesn't go well. But I would just reschedule this to September and see if they do something.
Did you want to go ahead and go through this on the motion and have
Yeah.
that done, so we at least have that taken care of? So,
To adopt this.
Mhm.
And then you don't even need to make a motion. You could just separately tell me not to file it with the court until
Yeah, but we can
September.
go ahead
Yeah.
and go through, okay, I make a motion to adopt this, to have this cleaned up, so.
I'll second.
Yeah. Well, I made the motion.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
second,
did.
right,
Oh,
so we've got that in place.
To have Mike follow through 5 days afterwards?
Yeah,
Well, he'll be back here next month, so we'll know exactly what's
Yeah.
going on.
Well,
the next
I'm
month.
not gonna track this though. I mean, I'll just wait.
Well, we'll know,
And
Renee will know.
Jason will have to contact this guy. I mean, I'm still a little bit miffed that they made us get a search warrant, wouldn't let us search the property. After they got a building permit, and we had a right under the building code to go in the property, they refused to let us enter. So it's still a little bit, but I'm trying to look past that. Looking past that, so, but yeah, I think that's reasonable. Adopt it tonight, get that part done, and then communicate with them. You know, they've got to communicate. That has been the other issue since Sunny left. They just haven't been, you know, we haven't been, their phones are disconnected. We just can't. We're willing to work with them. They just won't. It's frustrating.
Can't work with someone that you can't contact.
Okay, so we, any other comments?
So you're making a motion to adopt resolution
Yeah,
2024-30.
you would made the motion. Jim seconded it, so this is with the. We need to make any,
We gotta do this by roll call, don't we?
yeah, I'm just trying to, if we want to put in more wording here about the September. Back in.
You can just direct me. I'm just gonna tell you,
Correct.
I'm not filing. I'm not gonna do anything. Just gonna wait till September to do something. But we're ready to go. So we'll be ready to go if they don't.
Then we can take the voice vote.
Counselor LeBlanc,
Alright.
Counselor Richard,
Aye.
Counselor Phillips,
Aye.
Counselor Pendergrass,
Aye.
Mayor Ikorst.
Aye. Yeah, it's approved.
That's just,
Right.
is that just to see if they have a contract?
So if you vote today to adopt this resolution, you are making a declaration that this property is hazardous. That's what the resolution says. You're making that decision that this is a hazardous building under Minnesota law. Then separately, you're just kind of directing me not to file with the court yet and give them a month and see what happens. So the decision tonight won't be undone then. This is a hazardous building.
Right.
I think it's pretty obvious. I don't think it takes any building official to look at those photos and know that.
Yeah.
Okay, fire department, we have a motion to approve resignation of Mike Leonard.
Second.
Does he get 20 years in or what's the deal or? Does he get 20 years in the fire department?
I think you're just busy. Kane, you wanna address that one? He got busy, didn't he? But
What's that? I hate to
With
see
Mike?
people leave, so.
Why,
How many years did Mike?
Is he retiring or is he just?
He's got 7 or 8, something like that.
Oh,
But he's just busy doing other things and.
let's go fish.
I just hate to see people leave. that
Oh, he's-
been around for a while.
Yeah.
Spend the money training people. You hate to see them leave.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Yeah, I made the motion and Jim Richard seconded, so. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Oh, same sign. Responders in your packet, economic development, there's some updates. The one thing we're looking at is conduct a community identity and branding process. Rebecca has talked to a Cracker Jack is the name of the company, but we hopefully will have something at our Tuesday night EDA meeting with a quote and bring that back to we'll hear more about that later. What we do have is a request to approve a letter of support, which is in your package. And this is support letter to the Smith Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation to go with the application for a small town grant. That was written by Rebecca Charles. The motion, we approve the support letter with the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation for the small town grant. And this is in regards to the funding for the community identity and branding. And the letter itself is just, we've got a deadline to get the letter done by August 26th, I think it is, so. She still needs to do everything that she needs to do to submit it as well, but this is a letter of support from the council is why it's on the agenda here, so.
Yeah, I don't know if we wanna go to the Cracker Jack right away, but a letter to get out and see what we can get, I think that makes sense, you know, I'm just. You know, I've got my comments on branding, we'll wait till next month and see what comes back after that.
We have a second.
Herb did.
I'll second it.
Irv, thank you.
Irv already did, yeah.
Did you?
No, Irv seconded.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Sorry. Yeah, this is we'll hear more about it at the EDA meeting and come back to September 17th meeting too, so. Seeing no more comments, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed?
No. Just for the letter.
Is that a no?
Yep,
But I just said for the letter, correct?
Just for the
Rebecca,
letter,
okay.
yeah.
it's just for the letter.
Okay, Parks and Trails. We'll put together a proposal that Joe was on vacation, so I went to the meeting with Brett Grable, associate engineer, partner with Joe, so shared this information with a FEMA representative. You can see it's pretty explanatory. If you had a chance to look at it, the different areas, there's 8 different areas. And about 2 days before, 2 or 3 days before the August 2nd deadline, I come to realize that we hadn't submitted our submission for either state assistance or FEMA assistance. And so Joe and I met briefly and we looked at the damage done to the river, in areas 4, 5, and 6. And what we heard in a couple of days before was that we only applied, we had enough within the county, Olmsted County, to get state assistance, which means that the city had to pay 75% and state assistance was 75% and the cities was 25%. Fund everything. That's because we didn't meet the threshold for FEMA for Olmsted County. So then the 3 of us met and we reviewed the damage done to the river from the floods the end of June 21st to 26th. And Joe put together an estimate of those damages. And that was $140,000 compared to, in addition to all the River Park, Orinoco Park, Alice Park, and Garden Park damage. So that $140,000 that we sent in to the county on Friday, August 2nd, allowed us, and had to be presented August 4th to the state, and that allowed us to get FEMA money for the county. So we've went to a FEMA meeting last week And that's under discussion right now with the FEMA if they're going to accept area 4, 5, and 6. And so it's still, but there's several other steps that need to go before it's finalized. It goes to the state. And so ultimately, sometime in the near future, nothing moves very rapidly with the FEMA and the government, but hopefully we'll still get FEMA money. And there's a process. We've had FEMA funds back in 2019, and it's a long process. So there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of documentation. So we did have some good documentation as well, except for Garden Park. So that's kind of an update on that, and we're just gonna wait and see what comes back.
So we didn't have, I say we didn't have documentation on Garden Park? You said we didn't have documentation on Garden Park?
Yeah, they asked for photo, and this is just with the some down trees in Garden Park, I think.
Yeah, there was a bunch of garden fire.
There's, if you look back in your packet, there's area 8.
Yeah, you're looking at that $6,500 for that.
So the river damage is pretty substantial in those 3 areas. And, I don't think we can really count on rebuilding it to the original, but the idea is to stop the erosion. That's the main thing. There's a couple other documentation. Jason had some information there too, so. Next item is city administrator report. And of course, Jason's not with us tonight, so I didn't get a chance to talk to him today, but we can talk to Kane and Renee regarding that, so. So the items that are on the agenda is to approve the purchase of new software, financial and personal management, including the following: general ledger, accounts payable, cash receipting, accounts receivable, utility billing, payroll, and timesheets. Also included in the new software will be updated online bill paying and payment processing data, which I think is a plus. Data conversion and database set up and implementation training. The purchase of this new software will take part over multiple years of 2024 to 2026 as outlined in the proposal and comparison.
I thought we were getting new software last year.
This was in the budget for last year, for this year.
Is this the same program that Sunny was working on? Or?
Yeah, it just never.
We did demos and never really chose one yet. And then she was gone. So then I put it on hold till we got the new administrator in here. In hopes that maybe he had used one prior, or she had used one prior and he hadn't. So we went back, you can see in the comparison, it's what we have now currently. And then the top 2 that were our choices from the last time. We did demos with Jason this time. So he got to see what they were like. And in working and training, seeing what we have compared to what I was going for. He was just very impressed with the BSNA programming. It's very customizable. We can do lots of different setups. The main thing that I was really pushing for was a customer portal. So you as a resident, you don't get your water bill, you can go on and you can look and you can pay. Right now, our payments come in through a third party and I've got to take those and then convert it in or put it into our system. This will do it automatically. You're just paying right into the system. It puts it on and it's pretty much shows up right away. So it's just a lot faster, less time consuming because you're not going from, taking these payments, putting it here and putting it there. A lot of it will be done automatically.
As for those who do it online.
Correct. Yes. You'll still have the option to pay by check or whatever, but if you do pay online, you'll be able to do it right through their portal.
I'm kind of looking and comparing the 2 going back and forth. And I was looking also at the training that was involved with it. Some of them are online. The other ones are pretty costly for them to come out and do the training. And the one that you guys like, if you look at the total, it's $78,575 versus the other one, which is $17,901. So there's a big difference in cost. I have, personally have a hard time going with the $78,000 off of that if we can get by with the 17. to do it if all you're getting is a portal that there is. And the other one with the 17 has online training. So whoever else would come in as temps would ever be able to train online. And the other one doesn't have it. They have to come out and train to do it
I
that
think
way.
they do both, and I think the initial training was.
And because I mean, I looked at what that cost is that they had for coming out and it's pretty substantial, you know?
Before we continue the discussion, I would like to make a motion. Do we get into the right sequence here?
Okay.
Motion and second discussion is that we approve the purchase of BSA NA software package at the proposed price according to the payment schedule of the proposal. So with that, is there a second?
I'll second.
We want to discuss it. Thank you, Jim. Okay, so you're saying, Jim?
No, I was just saying, if you look at what that cost was coming in for them to come out and train and everything, I mean, it was, and I'm just trying to find the exact amount that it was with that.
60,000 difference.
Yeah, I'm just looking for just the come out and training part of it as I looked and went through everything that way. Yeah, the travel expenses that there are $17,350 for just the travel expenses to get it, which is the same as what the other program costs total.
Well, there's no doubt that Jason spent a lot of time looking at this and Renee, and I think we know what we have is something that Tyler Tech can never do for us. And, I think that's worthy of noting that I think that they.
Oh, I agree.
It's over, if you look on page, whatever it is. Page 4, the payment schedule there is 26,000 this year. Second payment is in 2025, 11,000, the balance. What is it, 41,000, so it's a combination of 52, so.
I mean, you total that up to $78,000, $78,575.
It's over 50,000 in 2025.
Yeah,
I mean-
that's.
Yeah.
I mean, we got other things going on. We don't know what's gonna be happening. Anyway, that's just my comment.
I'm definitely not against software that's going to take some work away, but 60,000 over the other one, 117 and the other is 78. I think we have to take a smaller bite at this.
And give it a try, you know? and-
Right, give it a try,
You know, and
because nothing is telling us on the other one that, okay, we're only out $17,000 if we try it for a few years and it doesn't work. And
There's a whole
maybe
lot
in
of
that
work
time.
that goes into converting, just so you know.
Right.
Yeah, but
Months
it-
and
it-
months and months, so
I
we
get
do it
that.
this time
That's
and
fine.
we go
That's
and
one
we do it
person,
this
please,
time.
one at a time, no over talking, please.
So I understand the training involved. Totally understand that. You know, some of the things that one has versus the other, you know, I question if it's worth that extra $60,000 or 61 almost. And training right now, I don't see it in the report, you know, what training has been done. So I would be for the $17,000 one.
So when I looked at the spreadsheet, Renee, did you have some comments first?
I just want to make sure everybody knows, like, you do this training, you do this converting, it takes months. It's almost a year from start to finish to get us all up and running. To only use it for a couple of years and have to go back through it again if it's not what we like is a lot of work and a lot of time. So that's, you know, you guys may think, well, it's just switching software, but it really isn't. They're taking all of, we're gonna be spending months getting them reports so that they can get in all of our back history in and everything else. So just think about that when you're looking at this. It's not just a quick fix.
Do you guys think that it's that much better for that much more money?
I do. We get a lot of phone calls. I misplaced my water bill. I can't find it. I didn't get it in the mail with that. And they're like, don't you have something online? I can look it up. A lot of people are asking for us to have something online.
If you look at the spreadsheet, the thing that catches my eye that BSNA has that Banyan doesn't have, it's got general, and it's not that much money either, that BSNA can offer, the general ledger module, accounts payable, cash receipt, accounts receivable. And that's all part, those are everyday key things. It doesn't look like that's much money, but I think the training to use those modules is really beneficial to city staff.
But the way I read it is the middle row, the lower priced one has that. The X means it has it, correct?
Yeah.
But there's no cost. That's the
Is
way I'm
that true?
reading
What's the
it.
X? Is that, maybe I
I think
misunderstood.
the Access means it does have it. I don't think they gave us a breakdown of what each module.
Thank you. I misunderstood with the X meant.
So that's why I'm saying, looking at that.
And those are the things that Tyler Tech doesn't have, the dashes, I guess.
Right.
Okay.
So, I mean, it has the lion's share, and I get the whole idea with the online portal. I guess I would question, is the other company, is that on their roadmap? Because most companies will tell you if it's part of their future roadmap. You know, is online portal part of their roadmap? Because if it is, I mean, they check just about every box here.
Can you
For a lot
explain,
less.
can you explain the payment starts 2026? Halfway through with BSNA? Is that the time, the total payment? Because you're getting public, this is what Renee's talking about, the public record search, online bill pay, which there isn't, there's gonna be very few companies that don't have online pay. And I think that's something our residents would like. It's definitely a big leap forward from where we're at with Tyler Tech, but if we're gonna do it once, we might as well do it the right way, and it's spread out over a couple years of payments. And it's, with the city growth and residents coming online, I think in the future, this is something that is really would be beneficial to city staff, both current city staff and new city staff.
So as I'm reading this, help me understand this, Renee. What's the name of the middle one? Mine was blurred out.
And Tyler's the one we've got right.
Banyan.
Banyan. So the things under payment starts 2025. I'm reading it that these things are already included here, correct?
I think, I didn't do
Online
this, Jason did, but I think
Okay.
what he did was he broke down kind of the pricing here and then this is the overall. And then I think he tried to go into what it would be, so payment schedule wise with the yearly amount. So like right now, we're just paying the yearly amount of that. I have no idea what we paid for Tyler Tech when we first got it. It was 2009.
Right.
So I have no idea what our original payment was for them.
And I agree, you know, I agree that we need to move past Tyler Tech. We need the online. Anything here, I see anything here is making your job and everybody else in City Hall's job easier, right? But as I read this, I took this as these things below were included. So that would be the online pay, the FAS support, payroll support, US and direct payment. Is that US or UB? Time card support. So, I mean, to me, that looks pretty robust for $60,000 less.
Mike.
That's
Oh, okay,
the toilet paper or the paper towel dispenser.
okay. So
It's like toilet paper dispenser.
that's why I say, because the only thing that I'm seeing that it doesn't have, that the other one does, is public record search, online bill pay, but this one says online pay support. But actually, now that I look at it, they're not lined up, so it, you know, they both have online bill
Yeah,
pay,
you're right.
payment processing. I would, honestly, I would be in favor of the, what is it, Bannon? Bannon,
Banyan.
Banyan,
And data.
you know, because to me, it looks robust. There's just a few things that it doesn't have that the other one does.
Well, what is public record search? What would we use that for? I mean, I just see it on the BSNA software, or in the bottom there.
I wonder, is that property, public records, like property and tax?
I think they did have something about, you could search up an address and it would bring up different.
I know Olmsted County has that. I mean, the things I see in the Banyan, I mean, they have a lot of what Olmsted County is. So I would make a motion.
It's, well, we got a motion ready. Or-
You got a motion on the other one.
So it's interesting, if you go back to the PowerPoint, now this is the SA's proposal. You go back to their PowerPoint. So they list a closer look. This is what the page looks like. In the back of the section. As listed to the cities that they replaced, if you will. So there's several that they've replaced Banyan with their BSNA. Victoria, Alexandria, Dayton, Delano. Even ones that had Tyler, Brainerd, Wyoming, Byron, had Banyan at one time. And until 2020, they switched to BSNA. Northfield had Tyler. Until 2022, St. Francis had Tyler, Excelsior, another one. Dakota County, Hastings, I should say. Lakeview, so there's a lot of companies that have switched from Banyan or from Tyler to BSNA. That's what BSNA is saying. So I think it's a big decision. And it's unfortunate that Jason's not here. And I would prefer that we just table this until Jason could be here and share with his background and training, or not background, but background of talking to BSNA and go into more detail, because it's obvious that he recognizes that the cost difference between the two. So I think there's either word. If that's agreeable with the council, I would propose we do that. I could withdraw my motion and table it till September. Because I do think it's an important piece of something we should take lightly, but make sure we understand exactly what we're getting. And get more detail about the training, unless you can know more about the
He was
training.
working on, I know he had asked for a breakdown, but I didn't know if it was in there or not. I can't remember what was in the packet, but all I know is when we compared the two, BSNA blew everybody out of the water. Just how easy it was to function, the functions that it had, the customizing things. We can each set it up for what we want to come up, and we open it, what we need, and we can give you guys access so you can go in and look at reports. Like, there's just so many different options that we can do. We can get certain access to the auditor so they can go in and grab what they need without having to wait on us.
Council be agreeable to that?
Wait till next month,
Done?
wait till next month.
Wait till next month.
Yeah, I'll be agreeable on that. I would like to also have some more detail from Banyan other than this, because if we got all the other details that there are for the other one, we didn't get much for Banyan, okay? And I'm sure they've got more information than what's given to us here for us to look at.
That's what they sent, but we can add.
Ask for some more information, absolutely.
So I like the idea of the, you know, the spreadsheet. Got the column.
Yeah, so we can at least look at it, yeah.
And what you're saying, Renee, I think that's important as a factor. So, you know, one has it, the other doesn't, you know, to really understand this thing. Because something like that would make your job easier. But I don't.
Well,
Yeah.
so I'll withdraw my motion and make a motion that we table this discussion to the September meeting with more background information. Second? The next item is
All in favor?
I'm sorry, all in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is acceptance of a 3-year snow removal freestanding by Ottman Excavating and the mentioned prices listed in the proposed bid contract. I make a motion to accept the Ottman Excavating 3-year bid proposal.
Second.
Second, Herb, thank you.
And I've got some discussion on this. I have to laugh. They put down $4, you know, for exceed rates of $4 per gallon. I don't think we've been at $4 a gallon on diesel forever. You know, to turn around there's a surcharge and instantly starts. So our surcharge on top of the fuel is gonna be basically 9.5%.
It's over $4.
Pretty standard.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, come on, guys, start out where it should be, you know, but. No, it was just a comment, like I said, okay.
In fact, I think our rates in our garbage bill started at $3.70.
Going back
So
a few
this
years
is-
and
So this is for the annual contract, correct?
for 3 years.
Their 3-year contract.
And we asked him about that in the previous meetings, I think, where he came back and said, prefer a 3-year versus a 2-year, just to kind of help him plan more accordingly, and that's how we went out with the bid. But in spite of that, he was the only one that responded, so.
Oh, I guess we have to have a second.
We did.
They did.
Herb second.
Okay, good. So my question is, does this have to go up for bids?
It already has.
No,
So this
no.
is, no?
No, it's a services contract. That's not a
Okay.
class of contract. that needs
But
to
I
be
thought you
voted.
already sent it out, didn't you?
We asked for quotes or whatever it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you do.
Yeah, so they said it's standing bid. I don't think they mean bid. I think they mean proposal.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah. You don't need to bid this. And it's not over the dollar threshold either, I'm sure. Not over $175,000, right?
What is our annual bill?
Just want to make sure something's not gonna come back on us.
Look at our budget, it was,
$30,000 to $40,000 a year.
it's back here in the back.
I make a motion to accept it.
Second.
We have a motion.
Or, sorry, yeah, there is a motion.
We're on a discussion now.
So,
No other comments, all in favor? Signify.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Nothing on streets and roads. There's a letter from Cedar Woodlands to HOA for your reference. Read through with some questions there, but
Was that what they read tonight?
no action. Oh,
They read that tonight. It's heard.
okay. Next item is Action item is to go into closed session. The council will meet with legal counsel to discuss pending threatened litigation related to Cedar Woodlands Second Homeowners Association. I'll make a motion, we close meeting pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D.05 subdivision 3B as permitted by the attorney-client privilege. Is there a second?
Second.
Sure. At this time, I would request,
You have to take a vote.
no, let's vote on our motion, sorry. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Now we can go into closed session, so we ask that the public leave and Renee, two.
That's one question. You have all the information you need from us. From Cedar Woodlands, because like Brian has copies of the stuff. Do you need anything? Must discuss the HOA land or anything? And then two, how are you going to communicate back to us? Since obviously it's not an open meeting, what the decision is?
Well, when we come out of the meeting, we could make a summary of our statement. Or typically that's what we've done.
Well, it depends what happens. So I think we have to go in closed session.
If nothing comes out, there's no comment, so. That's,
But as far as is the documentation, you're saying?
So, for instance, the various agreements, I'm sure, Mike, I think you've got these, but you have various agreements comparing Cedar Woodlands 1 to 2.
You have all those?
We got it.
Yeah.
We're good. Yeah. Thank you, but just ask.
okay, that's a good question. All right,
Thanks.
Okay.
thank you.
And then we'll call you back in when it's done.
So we
We'll let you
can,
know if you're still here to come back in for
okay, fair enough. Thank you.
discussion about city contracts, I guess. Okay, we'll go back into open session. And with that, I would make a motion that we table in discussions to the September meeting. And we would advise that if there's any other communications on this issue, that those will be handled through attorneys, both for Cedar Woodlands 2 and for the city attorney. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved, so. Discussion of city contract. David, you have some comments?
I have a contract that came came back to me on the, some of the people over at, Cedar Woodlands.
I'll look at it just quick and then I'll bring it over there again.
And, my concern is the mayor, the newly hired city administrator signed a contract with, ADG Hellas without city council approval. And I'd like to know where they thought they got the approval to do that. Yes, I have a difficult time with signing contracts and you don't have city council authority to do that. It's apparently a contract. And there was never any.
And this is all part of our the background of cost of reimbursement security agreement and this is something we've had with every developer that we cover the cost of engineering services, planning services, and they put a check together or donate it. They send a check in and we just use that balance to pay off. And after the development agreement is fine, then we.
And we had no development agreement before this took place.
We had this, that's right, because we want to cover the expenses of our city and engineer and planning services to develop the planning agreement or development agreement.
It was still done without city council approval.
Well, you're right in principle, but at the same time, it's a process that we have in place that's been used for many years.
That's a
This isn't the first process here.
Not so certain of that.
The only thing I'm looking at the date on this one, and that's dated April 8th. Okay, I know that this was in the packet on the fourth group of stuff that there was that we got from Hamilton. Buried in the middle of that stuff, and you know, if we had this, how come it wasn't brought to council? You know, in the next meeting, that's what was done, which we had no idea that even taking place.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, it's just all part of our permit process, if you will,
Or what process?
our permit process, as far as.
This has nothing to do with permits. This is an agreement.
It's help paying the city, so they don't get stuck with planning and city services.
I understand that, but a developer is gonna cover all them expenses until. Anyway, for most of that stuff, there's no reason for us to be signing agreements, making promises that
Nobody knows about it.
you're making promises that city council hasn't agreed to. That's not right.
Well, all I can say, this is what's been in place for many years. Together and, remember when we started doing these, Joe, I mean, it's been, it goes back to Fitzgerald and,
Yeah, probably for the last,
right,
I'd have to go back to Jack, but, I'd say for the last 10 years, we've been executing, and the city's been executing these agreements with developers as a precursor to, you know, execution of development agreements, just to ensure that, cities reimburse for costs that it expends, to facilitate and review developer submittals.
So
I'm not, again, it's,
yeah, I don't think that.
we're not questioning that, what it is, we're questioning the process of what went through, and you know, if something wasn't right 10 years ago, do we say, okay, 11 years, we continue doing it that way, you know, of what there was?
so how many,
So this should have been
The
done
point
to us
is-
for council
have you
before.
discussed this too?
Well,
How many people have discussed this issue before this council
I have
meeting?
no idea what it is actually.
I've never heard of it.
this was in the planning and zoning packet. I don't know who else has seen it.
Yeah, it's in there.
This is part of the packet that I didn't have access
Well, I
to.
don't,
Somebody brought it to me.
but, what you're saying is the process should be updated or
Well,
whatever.
We should have known about this before it happened. That's my point.
So, I mean, we had a similar issue come up recently.
So is it a matter of knowing about it, or is it knowing?
It's a matter of knowing about it beforehand. This shouldn't be happening before we know. about it.
Here's my view of it. This kind of stuff happens all the time in small cities, and so we had a issue recently where the city clerk just signed something that she wasn't supposed to sign and sent it to a company. It was a contract where the company didn't put in the contract what they had proposed, like a bid, what they had bid. The prices were different, and she didn't know to read it. And so she signed it and sent it off. So that kind of stuff, it's just, I would consider that a mistake, not like a,
That's a clerical error.
well, no, I think that's a procedural defect, just like what you're saying. It's like, she shouldn't be doing that without somebody else reading it. And just like these contracts probably should go in the consent agenda of the packet to just be approved. That's the preferred way to do this. But mistakes in contracting like this, I mean, I don't think it's that big a deal. I mean, it happens all the time. And so I researched that, and basically the clerk and mayor have to both sign in order to make the contract valid. The mayor and clerk both have to sign it, and there's a statute and there's case law, a federal case actually in the 8th Circuit, it's that statute. And so I think it is, I agree with I'm telling you that, is I think it is, even if the council didn't approve it, if that's where you're going with this. Is this even a valid contract if the council didn't approve it? It probably is, because the mayor and clerk both signed it pursuant to the statute 412-201. You know. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna wanna put contracts, simple contracts that are what I would consider perfunctory, like, you know, like Joe said, we've done this for every single agreement, like, we don't have to in detail discuss every contract and every issue. It should just go on the consent agenda and be approved, but. So that's my take on it. And, you know, when this clerk called me and said that this is what she had, it's kind of like, you have done that. Like, how could you have done that? Like, what? But then I put it in the context of small town government and kind of, whatever, you just move on, I guess. So that's what we did. And that company is not honoring their quote, fortunately. So.
I have two things.
I mean,
So Ryland, why did you turn and ask me if I discussed this? Are you assuming that I discussed this with somebody?
I just heard given, Paul talking about it, I thought.
This was in our P and Z packet that there was, okay, that we originally got this,
So,
okay?
but it was supposed to be in the package?
No,
It was already
it was
in.
never in anything. And it just was thrown in and like, if we didn't go through that last fourth packet that was in there, that 300 pages that we had to read that P and Z meeting,
Mm-hmm.
we wouldn't, I mean, that's where I had seen it before, was in it.
PLC, okay.
No, we didn't discuss it because it was in the packet.
It's on the website.
Right, and so my
Out there is for public record.
On the website.
I can access this right now.
Yeah, you want to be approving contracts and that's the
Right.
bottom line.
Yeah, no, that's.
Right.
Yeah, that's-
And that was my other point that I wanted to make is, this was put in place. We didn't know this was really put in place. Transparency wise, yeah, would this be nice to know? Would it be nice to know that this was in place
Yeah.
before we had that?
Yeah, and I look at
It's a
Jason,
letter of intent.
yeah, Jason had only been working for what, 2 weeks at this time?
Yeah,
I mean, he didn't even know what he was getting involved with on this when he signed it. So did you just tell him to sign it? Is that what it was? I don't know.
And Mike, are we assuming by doing this, are we assuming something? Because there was no approval
Well, that's what I was
for the
getting.
development
That's what I
yet.
thought.
Is this an assumption that they could come after us?
The presumption that the development
Right.
agreement is gonna happen.
I mean, so that's where I thought Paul was going with that, so that's why I pulled up my demand letter on the other issue. So my view of it is, I mean, technically what the statute says is every contract, conveyance, license, or other written instrument shall be executed on behalf of the city by the mayor and clerk. And then it says with the corporate seal affixed. And then it says, so this doesn't have a corporate seal affixed, although I'll say most of my cities, smaller cities, I don't think they have a corporate seal that I know of. So this is probably like 100-year-old statute, but my view of it is based on that, just the performance of the parties here, I think this is an enforceable contract.
Well,
And,
exactly.
and do I think it's gonna matter? No, I don't think it matters at all. I mean, I've read this. This is like the same template they always, Stantec's used for forever, I think, right?
Yes.
I didn't produce it. The city attorney produced it. We just replicate it, but yeah.
Oh, yeah,
As a
okay.
template, that's.
Template, yeah, so this is the template that we use.
Yeah.
I don't think what do you think is negative?
Outside
about
of
it?
names and the dollar figure.
Yeah, what do you think it would be negative? Have you read through it? I mean, this wasn't on the agenda, so I assume you haven't read through it, but have you guys read through it? Is there something in there that you're worried about?
Well, it's the fact that it gets signed without us knowing about it.
Yeah,
And it's dated April 8th, and we're now looking at what, on the 20th of August, okay?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's definitely-
That's not right. It shouldn't be done that way, and we should have been aware of it.
Yeah, that's no doubt about that. But what you were asking other questions, like, could they come after us? And I'm asking you, do you have any? I don't think so. I don't, but
Because you had mentioned, you had mentioned in the last council meeting, when we talked about not, approving the development and it could cause litigation.
well, that's.
Is this something that
No.
could be
No, this is unrelated.
an assumption?
Yeah, that's unrelated. That had to do with making sure, that was 2 council meetings ago, and that was about making appropriate factual findings, which you absolutely need to do. But that's a totally different, that's a development issue. This is just a contract issue. It's just a contract issue, I guess. I mean, and You did, I assume you took their $7,500. What it says is that you need to reimburse them if you don't spend it. I'm assuming we did that, but that's an accounting issue. And so unless you reached a term of this agreement, I assume they spent a lot more than $7,500. You know, I gotta think. So I don't think there's any money to return to them.
In some cases, we'll ask for an extension. We've done that with
Yeah, so
security agreements too.
I guess what I'm saying is, no, I don't think there's any, I mean, I was given zero notice of this. I'd have to read through this to figure it
Yeah,
out.
that's the other thing.
But I wouldn't worry about it. Jim's point's well noted, well taken, like, you know, the administrator's got to make sure that all the contracts that are gonna be signed are in the packet and approved, and it can be, I guess I'm making a plug for the consent agenda. It's only 9 o'clock. We did pretty good tonight, but you know, something like this just really doesn't take, I mean, it's perfunctory. It's just, you do 10 of them a year. I mean, I just think you can put that. But yes, the council absolutely needs to, I mean, you can't, the mayor and clerk shouldn't be signing contracts without prior approval of the council.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
That's the main, but I guess the legal issue now is, would that invalidate this? And I would say, no, it wouldn't, because the mayor and clerk signed it. The court would uphold this against the city. And number two, it probably almost certainly doesn't matter because it's a cost security agreement, which means, you know, yeah, what's the damages here? There are no damages. So I don't think, good point of order. And I, just like this other city that I had to give them a little tisk, you know, you got to make sure the right people are signing things and that you're reading what you're signing before you sign it. You know, you gotta get things in the packet and get them approved. And are you sure this wasn't approved in the packet? I mean, it seems to me like we usually approve them, but
No, like I said, there was no intent to bypass the council. It's just the process that's been in place for many years of security agreements. They come in with a proposal. We make sure we cover our costs because in the past, we haven't done a very good job of that.
well, you could do a standing order where you give the mayor the authority to do that and not bring the council every time. You could do that, but I think then you would have to like, you know, authorize the mayor to have that authority and so that standing authority in some sort of way. Which,
I have no objection for putting this into the contract for consent agenda or agenda item too. It's just something we thought was our normal process and rightfully we can change the process going forward. So I have no
Yeah,
problem with
I mean,
that.
it probably makes a lot of sense to give the mayor standing authority to sign it, because otherwise you only have one council meeting a month. Then you gotta wait every, you know, you either have to have a special meeting for each individual thing, or you gotta wait 3 weeks or 2 weeks to have something that's, like I say, kind of perfunctory. So, yeah, you gotta,
Well, these don't happen every day either on this, Mike, you know that. Okay, you know, so those situations that there are that are involved with you're doing this with the developments. You know, there was the other contract that got signed too with Waste Management that we had asked to be held off at that at the same time.
That's really
what was
funny.
going on.
that's my issue is with waste management. in this
Exactly.
other city.
That's,
That's really funny. So the other issue, I guess, that is important, I guess, is I would say that the amount. So, I mean, I think, because the amount is gonna change, right? This was $7,500. So that's the one thing that's gonna, in the name of the, I mean, the name of the developer, I don't think the council really needs to, I mean, it's the name of the developer, but I think the amount, I mean, there could be issue there with if you're charging enough or too much or whatever. So,
And Joe gives that number to Renee, because every project's different depending on the level of drawings, how intent it is, so that.
the bottom line is bottom line rule is if you don't have a standing allowance for the mayor to sign something, then it's gotta go to council to be signed. And there's probably in most cities, I mean, I'm not a clerk or anything, but I assume there's a list of things that the mayor is just authorized to do, and I bet a lot of cities just sign things that way, but I don't know. Contracts should definitely go to the council though, you know, for sure. Because you don't want litigation the other way, where the opposite is true, that you want the contract enforced. And then the other party comes back and says, well, yeah, the mayor and clerk signed it, but wait a minute, the council never approved it. So you can't hold that contract against us because the council never approved it. There's a procedural defect. So that's the real way. It's the opposite of what happened here. You don't want that. I mean, that you should be approving them. You know, you need to prove that, you know, in some instances, you have to do it by resolution, by statute, you know, real estate closings. You're gonna sell a piece of property, it's gotta be done by resolution. I've seen closings get held up because the title company won't close until they get the council resolution, and the council calls me and says, well, it's in the minutes. Well, not good enough that it's in the minutes. Statute says it's gotta be a resolution, so. Yeah, you wanna be doing things the right way. Yeah, don't do that. Don't sign anything the council didn't approve. And, yeah. And Jason wasn't here, I guess, but he's gotta put stuff in the packet, you know, it's gotta be in the packet, so. I think he.
So we'll, that's the council's wish to have them included in
I think
the
that's.
agenda, whatever.
I think we should know about it before you sign it, you know, that's it. I mean, the consent agenda is after the fact, you know, I'd like to know about this before.
Well, no, the consent agenda, like tonight, there's a consent agenda. You could put that in there.
To be signed.
To just be approved. That way we don't have to go through every last thing.
Okay.
That would get signed after the consent. agenda is approved.
And that's really,
Okay.
After it's approved.
and that's really what Jason's supposed to determine is what should go on the consent agenda and what should not. But absolutely, contracts, unless there's some standing authority to sign simple contracts or permitting, like your building official, for example, you gotta put it in the, you gotta have the council approve it. So.
The only request I would have, and Paul, you've done this several times already, is that these are gotcha questions. If you were to come
This isn't so
to,
much as a gotcha
can I
question.
finish?
No.
So I'm gonna keep on talking, then you can talk over me, I don't care, but the point is, these are gotcha questions. I mean, they're very legitimate questions. It could have been very well put in the packet, and we could have been better prepared to respond to your question. But when these gotcha questions happen, it makes for, very, inefficient use of our time, where we spent 25 minutes talking about something. We could have had some background and be prepared to prepare our response versus doing this. So I would appreciate all of us, if you have something, put it in the agenda, share it with Renee, get it in the packet, and eliminate the gotcha questions. I think that's a fair request.
Would that be for everything? Because there are a lot of things, Ryland, that end up on the table for the meetings.
Yeah, they're already put in here, so.
We try and eliminate those as much as possible, and we should still continue to do that. But I think it would be very good use of our time and,
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm just packing up. I'll stay a few minutes here.
with that, we have our consent agenda. I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Yeah, I got some stuff I want to take a look at in that.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. You can always pull it off the consent agenda if you want to pull it off, just because.
And I was
Should have pulled it out when
looking.
the agenda was being made.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, you should, but I think you can make a motion now to. Or you can just, the other way to do it is just discuss it when the agenda was called. You don't have to pull them out for separate approvals if you just want to discuss it. If you want something not approved, but everything else approved, then you gotta pull it off. So it just depends on what you're doing. Or intending to do, I guess.
I'm looking at, what there was for the EDA minutes that were in there. I'm actually gonna do those too. But with that on the EDA on page 3. And then there was in, walk-on items that there were, and, this goes back to Rebecca. And the comments that she was making in the 3-minute deals, and it says that she confirmed that she was doing this upon request. But she would be more cautious about doing so in the future. I was wondering who requested them to do that.
So which
This is on page 3
of the minutes?
of the minutes for the EDA,
Oh, okay.
under walk-in items. That's about it. I was just wondering who requested her to do that.
I'm sorry, I was looking for the page, that was your original question.
My original question is that on here, okay, that she was being questioned about, Rebecca was on making the comments that she made about the Hamilton group and backdoor or backyards and everything else. And on that, she said she confirmed that she was doing this upon request, but she would be more cautious about doing so in the future. I was wondering who requested her to go do and make those comments.
Yeah, my question is, with that, are you bringing up, isn't she an employee?
Basically, she is. She's
Because
a
we don't allow
subcontractor.
employees to speak at public forum.
That's true. We've had council members talk to public hearing too, so. I agree, we need to
But we're
watch. it.
council.
I was just wondering who requested her to do that. She said somebody requested her to do that, so I'm just asking who.
I will say,
I'm just asking who. That's all.
I will say it was brought up in I believe it was our last EDA meeting that public notices by EDA members should be a process for that to be.
All the members that are out
To be approved and how you're speaking on topics.
And then I had some questions too on some of the checks and going through some stuff too. And
I want to talk about that one a little bit more.
Okay.
Being that it was brought up. I believe it was offensive to our residents that were here. It's a comment that Rebecca made, and this is why I question whether it was right to have an employee speak at public forum, because I don't think we've ever done that. Because that's public forum, that's not employee forum. But the comment that she made, that, and I'm not saying it verbatim, but it was basically that we shouldn't listen to the public, that they don't make the decisions that the council does. And it goes back to what I said at that meeting too. We are not a communist governing body. We're here because of the public, and for that statement to be made, I actually took offense to that statement. And honestly, I would like to know who asked her to get up and say what she did, because even the tone, I think, was offensive.
it was very negative.
It was to me. I don't know about anyone else, but it was offensive to me.
That was forceful.
It was loud, it was very pointed, and she's an employee. At the end of the day, she's a paid employee. And to sit up here and scold the council and the public, I think that was totally uncalled for. So I'm glad you brought this up, because I actually wanted to put that as an agenda item.
What was it? I missed it there. What was it related to?
Hamilton.
It's the public hearing for the Hamilton.
So if it's. Okay, so was it the public forum or the public hearing?
Public
forum.
Okay, so the public hearing, like there's statutorily required public hearings, right? Absolutely, staff present evidence during this
Absolutely.
hearing. They, like your building official during the Nash one would get up and say, I inspected give testimony, and you need them to do that to build the record up in case they appeal it. So because if they don't do that, then that's not a record. And so that's the type of issue where usually that would all happen this was weird, that Hamilton thing was weird in my view, because a lot of the talk happened at public forums and not public hearings. And like that, all of those comments that were at the public forum really should have been during the public hearing portion of that, so that they could be considered as evidence. And I think a lot of what ended up happening was people were talking outside of the public hearing, but at the public forum after the closure of the evidence being received. And I just the train was off the rails at that point, so I just kind of let it go. But there's issues there. Maybe her tone, I don't take any comment on that, I don't know, but.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly you would want, although I would also say she's an EDA person, I don't know what that has to do with the development project. So that's the other thing, like typically it's about like zoning, subdivision and land use and not, I suppose she was saying she was in favor of it to promote jobs or something.
No, there was a lot of other stuff. You can listen to it if you want online to find out.
I'm not gonna listen to it.
was.
I just wanted to make sure you understood that during the public hearing on an application, or like if you're gonna expel somebody from the public pool, you don't have a public pool. If you're gonna expel somebody from the public library, whatever you have, because of bad behavior, you're gonna have a public hearing, and absolutely you would want the pool director, or the library director to come in. I mean, you almost can't do it if they don't do that. I mean, you have to have them come in and give testimony. So just so we're clear on that, does everybody understand the difference?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just some other comments on?
Yeah, I did. I was kind of looking, I mean, I'm looking through these and actually I think we're running pretty good on the budget. I mean, there's some items that's a little bit off, but I think all in all, we're pretty decent. The thing that I was kind of questioning was part of the check and the TIF, which is for C.H. Robinson for the $147,000. How much is left on that TIF that we're gonna be paying for the city to Robinson? What is
Well,
it?
assuming it was 2 years of payments.
Well, there's been probably about 7 years so far that we have, and Renee and I have been looking through that. I mean, how many more years are we gonna be paying? Because that's $147,000 and a lot of the city people aren't even aware of that we're doing that.
Either 7 years or we reach the $750,000 threshold of what we paid them back. No, I think that's what it is. We'd have to look at the documents, but I'm going from memory.
So me
It's years or dollars, one of those two.
What are we paying them back for?
That-
What are we paying them back for?
A TIF. It's,
Tax increment financing.
right.
Yeah, come here.
That's what was agreed to with council. Back when they came to the council, or came to the city, so.
You guys mind if I head out?
Hmm?
You mind if I head out?
No, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Before I open my mouth up?
Yeah, yeah.
10 more minutes.
Have a good night.
Yeah, every night.
Check out your like,
Take it easy, guys.
Okay, and then, so that was the one question I had on it. I see some other stuff, the rest of it kind of makes sense, but I was just looking at the rest of our expenditures and yeah, I think we're pretty much in line
Yeah, we're
on what's going on. So I mean, watching everything else, but we're pretty decent. Oh, there was one thing that came up, is like we don't have, and street lighting, we didn't put a budget item down that way for electricity, and it was $9,000 year to date, and we don't have nothing that was budgeted for that. And that's on page 5.
Parks. Parks has electricity, recreation is true. Shop has electricity, it's all kind of broken out, fire department.
Yeah, it's a 42,802.
Street lighting department, 3,002, we spent.
$9,000.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, there's no budget item for that, which I thought was kind of interesting.
You said what line number? 42,802?
That's 42,802.
It's $22,000.
No. Right here, on this one, are you on page 5?
Yeah, I'm on page 5.
You gotta do the smaller one here. It says right here, Department 43,002, street lighting. Gotta go to that department. That's the right department.
No, it showed, yeah, well, I'm in the right department, it's right here.
No, you're looking at electricity. Okay, I'm looking at what there is for the street lighting. There's no budget and we've got $9,114. No,
Maybe my lines are drawn wrong.
right here.
No, that line. We got 242,802 lines is what we got.
And so,
There's another 42,802 down here. Another 42,802 in here.
and then I was looking, training, we're a little bit over with on first responders, but we get that reimbursed, don't we?
Yes.
We don't get first responders? Okay, so that's the one, yeah, we're over by 2,000 on that.
Fire department, you do.
Fire department. okay.
But I think all in all with that, we're still, I think, pretty decent. Yeah. All right, but I was just kind of questioning that. General equipment that there is for our fire department, we're at the max at 4,500 and we're over on that one. Oh, the other one was legal fees. If you go to page 3. Okay, yeah, that's Department 41,600 legal services, the legal fees. We had budgeted 27,500, and right now we're at 45,921.
What line item?
That's 42305.
I would think a good chunk of that'll be coming back to the city. Was associated with the Hamilton agreement or the Hamilton reviews, and you should get reimbursed for Mike's time through that cost security agreement.
But if you're looking at 7,500, wasn't enough off of that, because look at all the drawings that you did off of that. So there isn't gonna be enough to cover that.
Well, the cost security agreement can, the $7,500 is just the initial payment. It's not how not to exceed number. So
I
you
mean-
should be, or the city should be continually sending invoices.
Oh, did
To
we send
Hamilton.
invoices more for that one, Renee, to be able to?
I haven't lately, no. I have to go back through and redo all of them.
Cause I mean, that's pretty healthy,
Yeah, what is-
27 for the whole year, and we're at 45 already. Yeah.
Same with the engineering costs on that project.
Oh,
Significant.
But I'm saying that's. I don't want the city to be eating that stuff, let it go to the engineering part of it too.
Okay, anything else? You have
The contract
like
labor,
this, more detail, you could stop, talk to Renee too
Yeah,
before the meeting,
yeah.
so we can.
our contract's off too for contract labor, but okay.
Okay, so we have a motion, did we have a second on the consent agenda? I made a motion, but I don't think I got a second.
Had a lot of discussion.
I think we had a second on the consent, but anyway, if not, put me down for a second and I make a motion to adjourn.
Vote on the motion for approve the consent agenda first. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It's approved. Now your motion.
Where you guys go,
Oh,
Jason needs some dates for budget meetings. So please get a hold of him, or if you have anything you can agree on now, I can bring it back to him.
yeah, I
But it
think
can't
we
be
need to
during
have
the
those
day.
clearance, okay, because we had maybe 2 by this time last year, 3 by this time.
He got a lot of it done ahead of time though, so.
Well, it doesn't involve us, okay?
No.
We don't know, so I mean, we want to be involved with the budgeting process, not just him, because he hasn't had even a year here to know what's going on with the city. I'll take anyone that got there. I'm open to whatever he's got, sooner the better, because we might have to have more.
We sent out an email, right?
No, it was actually here in his.
It was in there, but I think he did send out an email too, asking for dates. He just wants to make sure we get him going, so
Yes.
the sooner the better you can get him dates, the better.
What do you got, Paul?
Well, I think his request is for council to, his request is for council to respond back
So what's the?
individually, whatever.
Either decide tonight or respond back to his email. He did.
I'll take whenever everybody's available, but let's do it quick, because if we have to have multiple meetings, we need to have that before end of September.
Yeah.
I think that it's,
Then it would have to be something that they would.
All right, so who made a motion to?
I'll second. Jim, Bill,
Liz?
motion to adjourn, I seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? At 9:29. Thank you.
We'll have to stop, look at your bill.
Yeah, I'm, usually that,